Cloud. Hey everyone, this is Cindy. I was about to say April, but it's not April till tomorrow, March 31st, 2025. This is the hour we've entitled Where Rubber Meets the Road, where we take an idea from A Course in Miracles and we talk about how to use it. The idea this time came, and it was so interesting because I would have sworn it was a quote in the course. For years, I've been talking about egoic propaganda, as if the course somewhere teaches egoic propaganda. But when I did the search, they don't put those two words together anywhere in the course. So I settled for propaganda, and I was excited because it is one of the more popular sections of the course, at least in my experience, the section entitled The Quiet Answer. And as has been my habit, for now anyway, I'm going to read the paragraph that has that word propaganda in it. I'm going to play the song, a song to bring us together. I'll perhaps read it or part of that paragraph again, and then I have just a little bit to share about what happened when I really sank into it yesterday, and then we open up for conversation. Because there is so much in this one, what is it, less than 2 pages in the book. I realized that every paragraph, every sentence pretty much in this section, I could probably spend a month with and just sink deeper and deeper and deeper into it and allow it to inform us. But here is this particular paragraph. It reads, a pseudo question has no answer. It dictates the answer even as it asks. Thus is all questioning within the world a form of propaganda for itself. Just as the body's witnesses are but the senses from within itself, so are the answers to the questions of the world contained within the questions. Where the answers represent the questions, they add nothing new. I just felt a stirring of emotion there. And nothing has been learned. An honest question is a learning tool which asks for something that you do not know. It does not set conditions for a response, but merely asks what the response should be. And no one in a conflict state is free to ask this question, for he does not want an honest answer where the conflict ends. It was an invitation during a meditation in my diets this morning. This is slightly separate, but the same, I guess. The invitation was simply to be living peace. And as I sunk into this experience, this invitation, am I going to say yes to simply be living peace? What arose in me was this sense of loss. It's very interesting. So there's an invitation here to just be living peace. And the personality self felt like if I were to surrender to that, I would be giving something up. And I've been sitting with that since. It's this question. And no one in a conflict state is free to ask this question, for he does not want an honest answer where the conflict ends. Now a song for about 4 minutes, then we'll see what's next.
I went down to the crossroads, fell down on my knees. I went down to the crossroads, fell down on my knees. Ask the good Lord above, have mercy. Say, poor Bob, if you please.
Listen, standing at the crossroads, trying to flag a ride. Yeah, well, I'm standing at the crossroads, trying to flag a ride. Didn't nobody seem to know me. Everybody passed me by. I was standing at the crossroads, rising sun going down. I was standing at the crossroads, rising sun going down. I believe to my soul, oh, I'm sinking down.
Darkness catch me here. I said the sun is going down. Can't let the darkness catch me here. I ain't got no sweet loving woman to love and feel my care. Went down to the crossroads. I look east and I look west. Went down to the crossroads. I look east and I look west. Well, you know I had nobody, all in my distress. Tell my friend boy Willie Brown. Yeah, you can run, you can run. Tell my friend boy Willie Brown. I got these crossroads. Lord, I'm sinking down.
Forgot to put it on pause, so see what happens when I process this. It is page 817, paragraph. Whoops. Sorry. Try that again. 815, paragraph 5. Pseudo question has no answer. It dictates the answer even as it asks. Thus is all questioning within the world a form of propaganda for itself. So, yesterday I took this first part of this paragraph into my morning contemplation and dyad, and here's what happened. I got an instruction. It's in my blog if you want to read it, but essentially I was told that every time I sink in and I see any kind of judgment um, here, any sense that I am being affected somehow by a not me, not here, not now thoughts, or projecting out to another, or things I have to do, or something someone said, and there was a contraction here again. To recognize that that was judgment, and it was a sense of giving my power away to the illusory world. And that the instruction at that point is to rest as the one who doesn't judge. It was a very clear instruction, right? To notice when I am feeling the need to defend or attack, when I am feeling like there's someone out there that I need to have change so that I could be okay. You know, all the different things and all the different ways I'm talking, but essentially every time I notice that, every time I notice that, the invitation is to notice it and to rest into or as the aspect of the self that doesn't judge. And it was so interesting because this is instruction that came while I was in the dyad. And so the mind saying, I can't do that, I was able to watch it from something that was doing it. And it was very obvious. So I couldn't argue with the instruction at the time that it was given because I was in that space of non judgment. Otherwise, I wouldn't have seen it. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone else, but it was arising from the state of non judgment, from a state that wasn't judging. I wrote it all down. And what happens next is the world tests you, but the world is getting kinder and kinder to me. And so first I had a conversation with my mother, and I don't know, my mother's an interesting character, and I'm feeling, even while I'm in this conversation, this sense of wanting her to be different, or wanting to tell her where my sister's been having a lot of issues lately with trying to correct my mother's point of view. Like my aunt is calling my mother the Debbie Downer of the entire family. And so this idea of telling her she doesn't have to be so negative, right? And so I'm listening to my mother and realizing there's a sense of wanting her to be different. I had just gotten the instruction. So I'm in this space of watching it arise from this place of non-judgment. But then, there was conversations that needed to happen with both my children for various reasons, nothing big, but the next set of series of events, which became really interesting, was first I reached out to Sarah. I called and then I sent a text, and it was crickets, like nothing. And I'm feeling it and I'm watching it. And then I reach out to Emma, calling and a text, and it's crickets, nothing, and I'm still living in the instruction, and I'm allowing the energy to just flow, like feeling when you're witnessing it from a place that doesn't judge, there is this feeling of judgment, like allowing the sense of judgment to flow up in the midst of it. And then while I was doing my yoga, that's what came next yesterday. The phone tinged, like, I got a message coming through. And the thought was, well, which one of the kids has finally responded to me, right? And it was one of the spam messages. I don't know if you guys get them. It just said hello, right? And so I'm like, damn, is the universe having fun with me, right? Because here I am waiting for a response, and what I get is one of those spammers wanting to, and I blocked it, and that created all this churning in me. And so I went and laid on my bed and allowed it to churn and kept saying, no, inner wisdom told me quite clearly, we're talking about this on Monday. I asked for an instruction. I got a clear instruction. The body's going kind of nuts at this point, and I just let it happen. And then I fell asleep. And I woke up when Sarah called me. Like the world, the teaching state, when you no longer need the instruction in the world out there, right? Then you don't need it anymore. I found it also interesting because then Sarah called me and we had, there's literally nothing going on that's a problem. And it was just this connection. And then literally within 10 minutes of getting off the phone with Sarah, Emma called. And we had whatever conversation we had, mostly about bread, because she's baking a lot of bread these days. And there's a commitment to recognizing that the teaching clearly states to stop attempting to solve worldly problems. The world is a projection of thoughts and ideas here. And no matter what is going on, even kids not answering the phone and spammers coming, no matter what's going on in the world, it's a gift and an opportunity to see what's in here. And inner wisdom's more and more telling us it can be done from a place that doesn't judge. So that's my share. And you could put your hand up and down all you want, Andrew. Your hand was up. So looking forward to what you have to say and what happens next.
Thank you, Cindy. Your share was a perfect example that shows that we are so far down this rabbit hole that it seems so real to us, and yet it also demonstrates that the course is working for you because both your daughters called, everything worked out in the end. I really like this topic that you selected, and talking about pseudo questions. Every question that the ego comes up with is a pseudo question. Every time we have to deal with anything that's going on in our personal lives, they're all pseudo questions because none of this is real, but it seems very real. Further on in that chapter, and on paragraph 7, I think it's the last sentence. Within the world, the answers merely raise another question, though they leave the first unanswered. This is really about the holy instant, this chapter, and how the holy instant works, like your example showed. But that sentence reminds me of science. Like these scientists who are studying matter, they find a smaller particle and they have to go deeper into it to find the answer to why it exists. And there's never going to be an answer, apparently, except there is an answer in the book. It's chapter 6. I don't know about the purple book, but in the blue book, chapter 6, section 5, talks about the origin of the ego a little bit. And the ego raised the first question that was ever asked, but one that it can never answer. That question, what are you, was the beginning of doubt. The ego never answered another question since, although it has raised many. Now, further in the chapter, or in that section, it gives the Holy Spirit's answer. Here then, the one answer of the Holy Spirit to all the questions the ego raises. You are a child of God, a priceless part of his kingdom, which he created as part of him. Nothing else exists, and only this is real. You have chosen a sleep in which you have had bad dreams, but the sleep is not real, and God calls you to awake. There will be nothing left of your dream when you hear him, because you awaken. Your dreams contain many of the ego's symbols, and they have confused you, yet that was only because you were asleep and did not know. When you wake, you will see the truth around you, and you will no longer believe in dreams, because they will have no reality for you. Yet the kingdom and all that you have created there will have great reality for you, because they are beautiful and true. So that answer is very fearful to the ego, because the ego will cease to exist when we realize reality. And this is what we're learning as we go along and practice the course. That's my share. Thank you very much, and I love you all.
And I love us all too. And your share really pointed to, literally, I allowed it to arise. Here I am, and there's this morning this sense that I was invited to simply be living peace. And the feeling inside that I was giving up the opportunity to be loved, to be taken care of, to be given a hug. Like it was so real that the invitation to be living peace required sacrifice. It still feels real, but I'm holding it in something that doesn't judge. Thank you, Andrew. Hey, David.
Hey, a couple of things come to mind about this. I love this topic, but the first one does a these are honest questions, by the way. Does a pseudo question contain a judgment that I have? It seems like, what's wrong with you? Why is the world so unfair? Why do more people like me? So those to me would be pseudo questions. And on the other side of that, does an honest answer not be compatible with a pseudo question? So those are honest questions that I have. So, if anybody has any comments about those, I would sure appreciate it, because I don't know the answers to those. I think I may have a hint that I do, but I'm not sure. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to call on Amy in just a second, because, no one here just gets to do this and not have it acknowledged. But for me, in all honesty, David, a pseudo question is any question that has within it this idea that the world is real. Period. So or a sense that I'm something other than an expression of God. So the idea that I could be found unworthy, why am I so unworthy? That is a pseudo question. It has no answer in truth. Any question about making the world a better place or why the world is so scary is a pseudo question, because it implies that the world is something that's separate from God. Any question at all that implies that God doesn't know what's going on, that God isn't everything here, and that you have to somehow help God or fix something because God's not fixing it, they're all just pseudo questions, because they make no sense if consciousness just is, or the Supreme Brahman. Amy, would you like to go next, or should we let Andrew go next and then you, or Andrew next? All right, Andrew.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to respond to David. Maybe I could help a little bit. Questions that pertain to things of the world, they may have answers like, what's the best job choice or something like that, but they're all answers that keep us in the world, keep us in the dream. So like Cindy said, every question is a pseudo question, except the one, what am I? The first question that the ego asked but never answered. I hope that helps. Thank you.
And as we hand things over to Amy, just in case anyone's interested, or we are listening to the guides at 3 p.m. Eastern.
Yes. Okay.
Just assume it'll be every Monday unless communicated otherwise. All right, Amy.
Well, Dave, Andrew just did such a good job. That's why I put my hand down, because he essentially took it where I was going to go. But what I wrote down is that a pseudo question has no answer is who is asking. And this reminds me of Rana, because this is her response also is, so who's asking? The one who feels separate is asking. The one who feels the world is real is asking. The one who feels that she is not a child of God is asking. And so it dictates the answer even as it asks. So if I don't ask that question, who is asking, then my answer will always be of the world. It'll always be something of the world. And so that's just what came to me. I just love this paragraph though. And I love it that it's a form of propaganda for itself. It just reinforces the sense of the separated self and the illusion of the world. And the last thing I just want to say, some of us went to Jenny Beal's class today, and she did a paper on the gap between thoughts, which in some ways I felt was a lot of just mind, a lot of mental involvement. But when I read further in what you selected, Cindy, where it says, so what the gap between thoughts is, if I could just really quickly explain, it's like I have a thought, and these two thoughts are happening one after the other because two thoughts can't happen at the same time. So they seem to happen in linear time. But what's actually going on is this ground of being that is under all the supposed thoughts. And the gap between thoughts is what essentially recognizes, well, there's this thought, and then there's this thought. And it's the gap of awareness that sees it all, in which it all arises. And so I go to paragraph 7 on page 816, and it says, the holy instant is the interval in which the mind is still enough to hear an answer that is not entailed within the question asked. And that is the gap between thoughts. It was just kind of like, oh, there it is in another way. So thank you, Cindy. Just beautiful teaching, beautiful teaching.
Thank you. And I'm handing things over to Rana. And Rana, I do love you, even though I'm turning my video off for a second. I have to just stand up for a second. So
I can handle it. I won't take it personal
thank you.
because of these teachings. Hey, everyone, it's good to be here. Really enjoying this discussion. And, I really appreciated what was read around what the focus paragraph was, because that's sometimes something that I have to do, in order to understand the context of what that is. And so very much what you guys are talking about, what stood out to me was the first sentence of paragraph 4. The world asks but one question. Of these illusions, which of them are true? And so I listened to the discussion, and then the very last sentence in paragraph 7, it says, in the holy instant, you can bring the question to the answer and receive the answer that was made for you. So, which illusion is true? Wrong question. It's not even the right question, because none of them are true. None of them are true. And the ego just wants to fight that so bad in the moment, right? When it's occurring to me that there's judgment or conflict or something going on right now. And I know that I need to stop talking and thinking and pause for a minute. I know that's the best course of action. But the mind is like, pick one. And it's like, wrong question. Right. And so when I realize, the question that points to reality, like has been said, is who am I? For whom is this arising? Who thinks that it's a big deal to choose between this in the world and that in the world? Because I'm still looking at the world. And the ego's like, but you have to. You have to make these choices. And it's only through direct experience and the sinking back of just taking a moment and pausing and going to that holy instant, right? And just being like, okay, there's no separation. And just slowly reminding and soothing the self, right? There's no separation here. Just trust this. Trust this for a moment. And then, like, it all becomes new after that. I don't have to do anything from all that junk that was being thought about. One of those options may be the next option, but I can move from an energy of clarity and an energy of peace and a trust, with all of that. That's what the holy instant really does for me. And I cannot be reminded enough, which again is why I'm so grateful we get together frequently, because it just keeps it in the forefront of the mind. I have a fast forgetter, or something does here. Something wants me to forget, right? And start again asking the question that only points to illusion. Even things like, what am I going to have for breakfast? Why don't you pull back and ask, what shall I have for breakfast? And allow yourself to be informed by that. It's way different. And it requires slowing down for sure. And so I will to slow down. Thank you.
So I'd like to share an experience that happened today in the diet that came up for me while I was listening to Amy talk about two thoughts. Still living in, and I'll read this quote if it's appropriate. But while I was getting ready for the diet this morning, still living in what I was taught yesterday, I've really, really been able to hold consciously more often than a lot of these things, this idea that when I notice myself judging or contracting or wanting things to be different, there is an opportunity to become more and more aware of, and now I'm remembering Sandra talking about something that feels like this, even while it's happening, to be aware of what doesn't judge that's here, right? So within the Global Diet community, I am a participant, I am a host, I am also one of two people that, I don't like to say I'm in charge, but I'm sort of like Yvonne and I make the larger decisions. We write the newsletters, we hold the space. I get to train the new, like, in charge, from a worker bee standpoint. So while the host who was in charge today was speaking, it came upon me that I wanted to correct something that she continually does. She does something that we've talked about a number of times that causes her more hassle than it's worth, per se. And she was doing it again. And the feeling of, there she goes again, judgment, right? And I noticed it, that I was judging. I noticed how real it felt. I even noticed the part of the mind that thought it was my responsibility to correct her. But there was no again, it's subtle. This is why I'm saying that right now I'm in this beautiful ground where I have an opportunity to do a lot of this work, because none of it is crisis, right? And so I move into the diet space with somebody else, and I brought it into the diet space, not from the standpoint of feeling like I'm judging another, but with this opportunity to practice what Inner Wisdom invited me to practice the day before. And the experience was two objects in a non-judgmental consciousness. So I literally saw the sense of a Cindy as an object, the sense of the other as an object, both being held in this space that had no judgment. If you can see that. And when I was in that, when that popped up, it was very visual, you know, and not always all that visual, but today I was. In that space, what was recognized was that I had a choice between identifying as the one who was judging, identifying as that, which was an object in consciousness, or resting as the sense of that aspect of self that doesn't judge. And I popped out. I don't know how to put it any other way. Kind of popped out and was able to literally do what the instruction was, which was hold the aspect of the personality that was judging an other without judging it. And that was key for me. I wasn't judging that the sense of judgment came up was wrong. I was holding it. And as I was holding it, everything got softened. Everything got softer. This idea of two thoughts and the space between the thoughts, when you were sharing that, I saw those two objects, being a Cindy and the other, held within consciousness, recognizing that in the experience of I wanting to correct her, there was no connection between the two. We were two separate objects in consciousness. And when I brought it to the instruction I was given the day before relative to this teaching, I was able to sort of pop out into that space and hold a part of me that wanted to judge, wanting to correct another, and everything got soft. And I lost the need to say anything to anyone, but not because I was judging it as wrong, just because it just didn't seem to matter anymore. Michelle.
Cindy. Hello, Cindy and everyone. So Cindy, I love that. So I just want to make a small statement and then ask you a question about that. What you just shared reminds me a little bit of Byron Katie's The Work, which I really don't do very much. I feel more comfort and joy and fun with A Course in Miracles, but I love her, and I love her guidance in looking at something and asking if it's true, and then if it's absolutely true, and how would you feel if you didn't have that thought or judgment. And oftentimes when I would do that process, which felt somewhat laborious, but after as I journeyed through it, it would feel so good, releasing my judgment, releasing my perception, having a shift in perception, and basically remembering. So that's what you reminded me of. And I was just wondering, when you said it, you felt a softness, you went soft. Could you expound more on, I'm curious.
Well, what's different, because I've spent a lot of time with Byron Katie and the work and stuff, and what's different here from that is that I wasn't doing any of the questioning you were talking about. The invitation was to be with the aspect of who I am that wasn't judging the circumstance, to just be in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And from that space, and again, I'm thinking about so much of what Sandra's taught us, from that space, allowing whatever the personality was doing to do it without judging it. So I wasn't questioning whether or not it was acceptable or not acceptable to want to correct the other.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually allowing it to just be there without judging it. It was an extraordinarily loving experience for me to watch this part of me who wanted to tell the other what she was doing wrong and why she has to do it my way and not her way, to allow all of that a voice in that space from a standpoint of having no judgment.
Mm-hmm.
There was no judgment of what she was doing. There was no judgment of wanting to change her. There was just this amazing still, it was the ground of being kind of space, and knowing that it's always available. And
Mm-hmm.
from there, allowing whatever was here to just come up. And in that process, it all kind of softened.
Okay.
There was no intellectual questioning.
I got you. Yeah. Well, and I guess what part of what I'm going for is the feel good, that love, which encourages me to continue with, it's exciting to me as I feel that shift. But I love what you're saying here, that it didn't involve any question asking, that you were just able to move there.
And to take it even a step further, I used to have severe panic disorder, like crazy severe panic disorder, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the last diet experience I had, there was an invitation from that same space of non-judgment to allow the panic to have full voice. I had never had that experience before. And it feels like an extension of what started yesterday. So literally to be in that space, to trust this space of non-judgment so much that I felt this invitation to allow this body and mind to have a full-blown panic attack without control. It didn't, but the experience, some of the symptoms of panic and anxiety started to fill this space. And I was able to stay in this ground of non-judgment and allow it to be without trying to change. That had never happened before. Like, I'm bringing tears to my eyes. This sense that it's okay to be in panic. I've never, ever, ever, I've never felt that before. It feels like a paradox, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet it now feels really important.
Yeah, very powerful.
So does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Amy's got her hand up and she didn't put it down.
I didn't, because I just want to tell everybody, I'm sitting here looking at everyone's faces. I want to tell you I love you. And I want to tell Ndego I'm glad she's here. That's it.
Oh, Diego, how are you? Are you there?
Hi, I'm so happy. Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. I guess, yeah, I'm like going all over the place. It's actually pretty amazing. I'm just experiencing everything and I'm just welcoming it. And I'm just seeing that everything is God and everything is love. And yeah, so it's amazing. It's really amazing. And I'm listening too. And I'm actually starting to go, okay, no, I want this, or no, I want that. So I'm actually starting to make decisions. And it's amazing. So I just love being here. So I can't tell you how much I love being here. It's all I want. So thank you so much.
So while we wait for Richard to raise his hand, can I read another quote from Joel Goldsmith? There's something about making Richard laugh that makes my day. Can I just say that out loud? Unless you want to go first, Richard. Here's a quote that I wrote in my journal before my diet experience this morning. And it speaks to these practices and everything we're talking about, at least it does to me. And so this is 10 or more years before before the course started to be channeled. Quote, every incident of our daily experience offers fresh opportunities to use our spiritual understanding, and each use of the spiritual faculties results in greater spiritual perception, which in turn reveals more and more of the light of truth. Pray without ceasing, ... and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Translate the pictures and incidents of daily existence into the new tongue, the language of spirit, and consciousness will expand until translation occurs without even taking thought. It becomes a habitual state of consciousness, constant awareness of truth. And then Richard raises his hands. I'm so happy. Hey, Richard.
Well, I love us all. Ray shares. What I've been thinking about recently is one of my favorite phrases, but I haven't used it in a while. But it keeps popping up in my consciousness, and that is just be. So, and I was listening to your shows, and I thought of that. And I was thinking about the Settler Bob also. I haven't finished yet, but she talks about, and I'm aware of this in my own self, is I'm the dreamer of the dream. I'm trying to observe the dream from a non-judgmental awareness point of view, not judging anything in the dream, including Richard and all of us. And then when I apply the just be to that, I go, well, and the seller is, if I look at my life, what I'm doing as a character in a dream, as Richard, what am I thinking? What is my saying? And what is my doing? And therefore my perception? How is it reflecting? What is it reflecting? Is it reflecting my true self, or is it reflecting my separate self? So this place is outside of the dream, but it also is a reflection of what am I actually perceiving? Why am I perceiving that? The Course says because that's what I projected onto the world. And then what can I do to purify my thinking, my saying, and my deeds, so that what I see, what I'm reflecting is in fact the true self. So, for me, this is as a separate character in the dream. This is a lifelong pursuit. And it means also for me, I don't have to get rid of the separate self, because the separate self, I am the separate self. I am everything. So I don't judge the separate self. I just perceive it. And in my perception of it, I realize I may be reflecting my true self or my separate self. So that seems to be where I'm at right now. So thank you for letting me share and calling me. I wasn't sure I was going to say anything today. I was just enjoying you all as I do every Monday.
And if you haven't, can I just say this? If you haven't listened to this talk that Melanie Gillis offered us for this Thursday's conversation, can I just tell you it's a delight? I don't know how to put it any other way. It feels really good to be with it. And like I don't know if I've ever done this. Like I called Ron and I said, just listen to it. You don't, there's um, there's no intellectual necessity involved. It's not like what we did last week. There's nothing that you have to learn. It was just, it felt really friggin' good. I don't know how to put it any other way. It just, and listening, like hearing the story told of Sailor Bob's life from the perspective of his widow, who was 45 years younger than he was, and everything else, and all of, the craziness of his experience with alcoholism. And so much of what I've heard about the story and how it all merged with these teachings to the point of him, falling in love with hanging out with Nisargadatta Maharaj. The story of Sailor Bob. Well, uh, maybe Ron is about to drop the link for you, William, but Sailor Bob began as a real drunk, and then he joined the Australian Navy. But he was such a drunk that they tied him up and put him in the brig and kicked him out, and eventually he found AA, and after 8 months he decided he was sober. He didn't need AA anymore, but that didn't last very long, and he got real drunk, and somehow he found himself in India, and he was with one guru, and he dedicated himself to it, but he was called into, like, he spent a lot of time with Nisargadatta Maharaj, and just the love life of that. And there's sex and there's alcohol and there's AA and there's Bob's with a lot of nicknames, and there was just a lot of joy in the story. It's an hour that's worth listening to, and just how everything works out, and it's really outside of our control. Yeah. Hey, William. For anyone who listened to it, I did pretty well with that story, right, Ron? Hey, William.
I I love to hear these stories that you use, and it's like listening to someone is a good cook, chef. Oh, this meal I made is so delicious. Oh, you got to try it. Anyway, that's kind of how I hear you often. I just in Sailor Bob, but John, the guy that is such a devotee of his, who's so articulate compared to Sailor Bob, and puts the words of Sailor Bob into such a meaningful way. I love reading him and listening to him. John, can't remember the last name right now. What I'd like to say too is like what listens to Richard and all of you, and of course, just how present. I see myself falling in love with being present and being awareness. Somehow, whatever that is. So like this morning, spending 2 hours, wow, I spend so much time just being by myself and the awareness. And what I've seen, listen to you, the way it looks to me, I'm judging whoever it is, my daughter-in-law, my wife, and then I put myself in this scenery. I'm judging them. Then I find now I can either get the two characters, them and me. Then I switch to the two about me, the one judging, the judging. And then what I see is I just kind of slide back and have that space of being aware, being aware, being aware. And then I have all these images of whether it's a Helen Hamilton or whatever, Jenny Beale, just coming from this space of awareness. It is so powerful, so easy, so simple. I led a group this last week, and I was just so present and often silent. I was just letting the silence speak for me. I waited. I wasn't in the way. I didn't seem to be focused on me. And the experience was just slowing down, relaxing, and listening, and then saying whatever it is that occurred. And what I also noticed when I listened to this again, the recording of it, wow, isn't that interesting? It's kind of like when you watch a movie and then you watch it again and say, oh my goodness, I didn't notice that before. So that's what I saw, that even the silence got deeper the second time I watched it. And I notice how often now I pause, and whether I, that blink of the eye, repeat, I don't even need to do that. I just pause. I don't have to respond. I have a background of reacting. Uh-oh, what do I say? I don't know what to say. Well, it's not going to be good enough. Oh, all that chatter. It's like, oh, this silence is always there. I just didn't know it, wasn't conscious of it. So it's just that, and I can do that anytime, in the moment. Just stop. And it's like, when I stop, I'm not busy judging myself either, because it takes care of everything. It's like being home free. I'll wait. So I just it's savoring the silence of the moment. That's what it feels like. Thank you all.
Silence is all. Shell.
That was beautiful, William. Thank you. So Richard said something about, I appreciated what you said, Richard, about the call to just be. And I just, if I may, just read this quote. It's by Papa G. And I don't even know who Papa G is, but when I'm feeling contraction in this house, I go upstairs and I read this. It's on our wall. I read this and I close my eyes and I just rest. So this is the quote. You are the unchangeable awareness in which all activity takes place. Always rest in peace. You are eternal being, unbounded and undivided. Just keep quiet. All is well. Keep quiet here and now. You are happiness. You are peace. You are freedom. Do not entertain any notions that you are in trouble. Be kind to yourself. Open to your heart and simply be. Anyway, thank you.
I used to have Papa G's face as my screensaver because the joy and the love that he emits was unbelievable. And it was in Papa G's presence that both Muji awoke and Gangaji awoke in his presence. So if you take a snapshot of that quote, I'd love to take a closer look at it.
Yes.
And we've had an hour, so I'm going to just stop the recording. Thank you. I love us all very, very, very much.